All right, welcome. We're diving deep today. Got quite the stack of sources here, articles, notes, some research, all zeroing in on really significant development in Africa.
Yeah, a big one. A decision by one country that the material suggests could have some serious ripples internationally.
Definitely. And what we want to do today, our mission, is to really unpack this material. We'll pull out the key facts, the history provided in these notes, look at the potential implications.
Chiefly from what's in front of us, yeah.
Exactly. Giving you a shortcut to getting up to speed on this specific event. So, the core topic. The Republic of Chad has told the U.S. military time to leave.
That's the headline.
So let's get right into what happened according to these sources. It broke, early 2024? Chad's transitional government makes this very direct announcement.
Very direct. U.S. troops, the ones stationed at Aji Kosai Air Base.
Which is near the capital, N'Djamena.
That's the one. They were basically told, pack your bags, you need to leave.
Okay, and the reason? What did the Chofadian officials say based on these documents?
Well, the specific reason cited was that Washington hadn't properly informed the Chadian government about a new planned military deployment. A procedural thing on the surface.
Right, sounds almost like paperwork.
Yeah.
But the sources here, they really emphasize this wasn't just seen as some, bureaucratic mix-up.
Not at all. The material frames it more like Chad pushing back. Pushing back against what they saw as maybe the U.S. acting like it still called the shots, like Chad was still under its influence.
Oh, a demand for respect, for accountability.
Exactly. And control over their own territory. The sources actually use a pretty strong word. They call it a rupture.
A rupture. Okay, that's significant. Not just a disagreement then.
No, it suggests a real break, a fundamental shift in that power dynamic as the sources see it.
Got it. So to really get the weight of this, the sources say we need the history, the context.
Absolutely. I mean, for decades, you've had numerous African nations hosting foreign military bases, U.S., French, others.
And how were those deals typically made? The material touches on that, right?
It does. It suggests they were often signed or maybe just solidified, under pressure or during times of instability within those countries.
Makes sense. And Chad specifically has been a key spot for a long time.
Oh, a very strategic hub, especially for U.S. and French counterterrorism efforts across the Sahel region. It's been central.
And there's this other perspective in the sources from Pan-African thinkers.
Yes, and it's quite critical. They highlight this view that these military partnerships, well, they often come with strings attached. That's the phrase used.
Strings attached, meaning?
Meaning the sources suggest these deals are sometimes seen as chipping away at national sovereignty.
Yep.
You have foreign troops on African soil, but maybe without much local oversight or transparency.
Right, creating a situation where the host country doesn't feel fully in the driver's seat.
Exactly. That's the dynamic the sources describe.
Okay, so connecting that history to now, Chad's move. The sources seem to interpret it not just as, say, anti-American.
No, that's a key point in the material. It's framed very much as a pro-African stance.
Pro-African? How so?
Well, the interpretation is that Chad is sending a signal, a message across the continent, really, telling neighboring countries, look, you can stand up.
You can say no.
You can say no. You can choose your own path, your own destiny. It's presented as an assertion of agency.
And the documents link this to other recent events, like part of a bigger trend.
They do. They explicitly mention what they call a continental movement, and they give examples.
Like Niger.
Like Niger asking French troops to leave, yes. And then Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger forming their own military alliance.
Okay.
And even Gabon is mentioned, ending what the sources describe as unfair European fishing agreements. So different domains, but a similar theme.
Interesting. So the sources are painting a picture of
what?
A growing unity or assertiveness.
Kind of a rising chorus is how they put it. A rising chorus of African voices basically saying, our land, our rules, our future.
Our land, our rules, our future. That's a powerful summation from the material.
It captures that sentiment of self-determination that the sources are highlighting.
Okay, so Chad makes this move framed in this broader context. How did the world react? What did the sources say about, say, the U.S. reaction?
Well, the U.S. State Department's reaction, as recorded here, was that the decision was unexpected and also disappointing.
Unexpected and disappointing.
But
the articles push back on that a bit.
They do. Some of the analysis in the sources suggests this reaction might show, perhaps, that Washington has sort of underestimated the agency, the leadership within African nations for a while.
And they link Chad's action to wider feelings on the continent.
Yes, to these broader underlying frustrations that are described. Frustrations over, foreign interference, what's seen as economic exploitation, perceived double standards in international dealings.
Right. And what about reaction within Africa, online, for instance?
The source can capture that too. They describe the reaction from many African citizens online as, well, overwhelmingly celebratory.
Really celebrating it as
a victory, not just for Chad, but for what the sources call the Pan-African dream, that sort of long-held idea of independence, unity, and strength across the continent.
Wow. So it clearly resonates deeply, according to this material.
Very deeply. It's seen as a step towards that aspiration.
Okay. So let's try and pull this together from the sources. We have the core event. Chad says U.S. troops out.
Yep, from the Ajikase base.
Then there's the history. These long-standing, sometimes fraught military relationships.
And the interpretation that this isn't just anti-U.S., but pro-African, signaling a wider shift.
A signal amplified by similar actions in Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali.
Part of that rising chorus.
And then the reactions, U.S. disappointment, countered by source analysis and celebration online across Africa.
It really does seem like a complex, pivotal moment based on everything we've read here.
It absolutely does. Which naturally brings up some big questions looking forward, right? Questions raised right here in the material.
Definitely. Like, what happens next for Chad? Is there going to be pressure? Retaliation? Maybe. Some sources speculate about that.
And will other countries follow suit? Will this, embolden others to reevaluate similar agreements?
That's a huge question. And what does it all mean for African unity itself? For defense cooperation within Africa?
Yeah, and how African nations engage with global powers going forward. It feels like the ground might be shifting.
It certainly does. And it leaves us, and you listening, with this kind of provocative thought drawn straight from the sources we've been digging through. Given these developments, this rising chorus, what does the future balance of power and, maybe more importantly, true sovereignty look like on the African continent?
What questions does this particular situation in Chad raise for you about the way international relations might be changing right now? Something to really think about.